What's up, I'm travel photographer Brendan Vanson of BrendansAdventures.com, and today I have an episode from behind the desk where I'm going to take you through my Iceland photo story. Let's see it. So as a part of the growth of any photographer, you really want to improve your skills, of course. And for me, it's always been the art side of things that I've wanted to build on. I've always been very good with the technical side of photography. For me, it's been more like trying to figure out composition and find interesting angles and lines. That's always been difficult for me. So this past couple months, I've really tried to focus on that. I've tried to focus on creating images for black and white, on really developing a scene and the proper angles and lines and giving it a nice touch. So you can say I've been trying to get more artistic, which is probably not a fair term, but that's what we're gonna go with. I'm trying to get a little bit more artistic, or at least show off the artistic side of my images more. I tend to get very focused on the technical side of photography, and coming from a stock background, that's pretty normal. So I wanna take you through my Iceland photo story. So when you're creating a photo story, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create 10 to 15, 10 to 20 images that really describe a country. And for this photo story, I really wanted to describe how I felt in the country. I wanted to describe how my journey, my week in Iceland felt to me. And if you haven't seen my video from Iceland, click on me right now and you can see that entire video. It might be good to see that video before seeing this one. So you can jump there and back if you want. But yeah, so anyway, creating a photo story to me is really important because through like 10 to 20 images, you can really look back at those images and remember exactly what it was like to travel a certain country, a certain destination. So that's what I tried to do here, and I'm going to walk you through the images I chose and tell you why I chose them and maybe explain how I shot some of them as well. Let's get into it. The first one here is the famous church in Iceland. Now, I can never pronounce the name, so I won't bother trying. For me, it's called the church in Reykjavik. And for me, this is the symbol of Reykjavik. I love how it's designed. I love how it looks like an old church organ with all these pipes. I think it's so beautiful. I think it's so cool. And I wanted to do something different than everybody else does here. So I flipped it to black and white. I did a really long exposure, even though it wasn't dark yet. It wasn't even like, sun wasn't even down yet, in fact. So that's why you get this bright glow. The sun was setting somewhere around here. And I wanted to flip it to black and white using that 30-second exposure to show movement and drama in the sky. Now, from a technical side of things, in here, the image is fairly artifact and noise-free. It's a little bit noisy, a little bit smudgy, but up here in the sky, it's really grainy, and I'm okay with that. In the past, I would have been really upset at myself for letting it get grainy in the edit, but for this style, I don't mind too much. There's some smudges and some spots I want to clean up, but other than that, I'm very, very impressed with this image and how it came out, and I'm happy with myself. The lines all came out perfect, the sky looks cool, it's dramatic, it's got exactly the effect that I was trying to exude when I took this photo. Let's move on, out of Reykjavik now. This is Grundarfjordur, I believe, something around the name of that. And again, this is one of my favorite images from all of Iceland, and I just love the drama it presents. Now, this was taken at a place called Kirkjufells, which is a famous waterfall, and there was about 10 other waterfalls people, photographers there shooting the waterfall. And I just saw the light baking the town in this hill, and I just had to photograph it. It just had to be done. And so I turned around, flipped on my 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I shot it at 155 millimeters, and I shot it. I shot this as a blended exposure, so I put in, I believe, 2 exposures into one here, and it just came out brilliantly. I love the color on the mountain. I love the striation up here, other layers of rocks. I love the church at 2/3, and the golden color of it. For me, it's an image that nobody else has of Iceland, and I love the fact that it's completely unique. And when I create a photo story, I really want to try to get iconic and also things that are completely unique, all in the same package. I think that's really important. So I'm really pleased with that image. And going to something completely iconic now, this is the waterfall that I was talking about, Kirkjufells. Again, this is one of the most iconic spots in all of Iceland. We got amazing light. This was probably the one night, the only night in Iceland we got really, really good light. So I was happy that it was here because this is the waterfall I wanted to shoot more than anything. So I slowed down the shutter speed just a bit to 0.4 to get some silkiness up here, but still get some drama in the water. And I'm happy with how it came out. I need my iconic images in with the unique ones. So Kirkjufellsfoss is there. Moving on, this is Dettifoss. And Dettifoss was borderline scary. It was really, really, really powerful. Not just because of the waterfall, but because there was like a gale force wind that was knocking us around when we were out here shooting. There was a couple times I had to get down on my knees here right at the edge because the wind was so strong it almost knocked us over. And although you can't really tell from this photo, it's deep here. It's a huge waterfall, and if you were to go over the edge, you'd be done. It's lights out for you if you go over this edge, I believe. Very powerful. And the reason I shot this image the way I did is because I wanted to show off that power. Up here, shooting at this line, or right at the edge, you kind of throw off the depth of it. You don't see the depth of it. You don't see the power of it. So I wanted to put a person in the foreground for scale, and I also wanted to shoot it from above for that scale and depth. And I like how it came out, but there's no way to show off exactly how impressive this waterfall was and how scary it was to be up there, because it was a crazy intense moment. It really was. And when I think back on Iceland, I'll definitely be remembering that moment as one of my craziest moments in Iceland for sure. Moving on, this is the moon-like landscape of the north of Iceland. This is a geothermal site, and for me this was amazing. We were there in the late morning or early morning and got pretty decent light, but the way the light came combined with the landscape just made it look so moon-like, so Mars-like, so extraterrestrial, that it really stands alone for me as that one image that shows off the diversity of Iceland's nature and landscapes. A lot of the landscape photos you see from Iceland are water, grass, green, yellow, they're brightly colored, whereas up here it's like desert and dry and barren, and it's impressive. And I think that most photographers don't show both sides of it. They just show the green, the water. And so I really wanted to show how diverse it was, because as you travel around Iceland on that ring road, you really go through so many different diverse landscapes. It's really impressive to see. And this was one of my favorites. The light was good, as you can see in the sky, but not phenomenal. But I'm still really happy with how it came out. These are like mud pots. So you got boiling mud in here and here and here. And every now and then they would really burst. It was a really cool moment, and we had it all to ourselves. On to the next one. This is actually taken from that exact same spot as I took the other image, just turned around shooting the 70 to 200. Now, with a photo story, you're trying to not create standalone images as much as you are trying to create a story of how you felt and how your time in a certain destination went. And for us in Iceland, we spent a lot of time on the road. Every day we were on the road about 6 hours. And so that means that, well, we were at destinations for 5, 10, 20 minutes, maybe an hour. We were on the road way more than we were at destinations. So for me, the road really resonates. I loved driving the roads in Iceland. They were really twisty and turny and fun. There was lots of hills. They were narrow. It was a really nice country to drive. The highways were smooth, and then there were some bumpy roads that were a little bit crazy and fun too. So the road is really what I wanted to show off here, and I had the perfect spot, I think, to show off that road with a perfect S-turn here. As a standalone image, it's good, not mind-blowing. As a part of a photo series like I did, I think it just fits perfectly. On to the next one. This was actually shot that exact same day at the end of the day to show you how diverse, actually this is still middle of the day I believe, to show you how diverse Iceland is. We shot that first image, it was barren and red and, you know, orange soil, and then you get to here and you get this mossy landscape with this, I think it's granite rock in the lake, or river, excuse me. And this was basically shot middle of the day, so the light isn't great, but I love how it came out. I love the contrast between the grays and the yellows and then these cool tones and the blue water. I think it's one of my favorite images of the entire year, let alone just of Iceland, and I shot it at the wrong hour of day. In Iceland, you almost always get soft light, so that's a bit of a blessing. Even if it's not perfect, it's still cool. I probably took 5 or 10 images at this location that I really liked, and I have no idea what this waterfall is called. I have no idea, none. We just stumbled across it on our drive around the ring road, and that typifies Iceland. There's just a constant array of really cool things to see. You just got to go find them. You can stick to the travel books and go to the hot spots where you're going to be covered in tourists, or you can just explore. And we did a little bit of both. This we found during our exploring stage, and I couldn't be happier with the way it turned out. Moving down, this was actually, interestingly enough, that same night. So we went from this in the morning to this midday to this in the evening. That's how diverse Iceland is. This is in the south. This is the Glacial Lagoon. And I actually took images of the Glacial Lagoon that I liked better than this image that are shot in the opposite direction, but they don't have this glacier-capped mountain. And as far as a photo story goes, you want to try to recreate your memories and how you believed a place looked or how you remember a place looking. And even though the images the other direction are way cooler and way more impressive, for me in the south of Iceland, I just remember seeing this glacial capped mountain ridge for like an entire day. And so I needed that in my photo. And I needed a photo from the iceberg lagoon because we spent quite a bit of time here. So I've got my icebergs, I've got my glacial capped mountain, I've got a cool sky. I'm happy with that image. I think I missed an image here, but let me see if I can find it. I think that very night, that very night I missed an image here. Let's pop it open. That very night, this is 4 images now. This is how crazy Iceland is. Morning, midday, afternoon, nighttime. That's one day, that's 12 hours or 16 hours in Iceland. And one night at a hostel, we got the Northern Lights, just a quick little burst of them, not for a long time, but they were beautiful to see. It was a really small Northern Lights. I would have liked to see a big one like I've seen before in Canada, but it was still really cool to see, and you can't have an Iceland photo series without showing off the Northern Lights. Camping was a big element of our trip in Iceland as well. We spent half of our nights camping and we got battered by rains and winds. We had a tough time camping actually, but it was also beautiful because it put you right in touch with nature. We're here at Skogafoss, camped right at the foot of the waterfall, and you can just see that I tried to build in our experience into the landscape because that's how I felt in Iceland. It was an experience that you really felt as a part of of nature. And that came in terms of camping, it came in terms of hiking around and walking around. So as a standalone image, it might not be that impressive, but it tells that story of us camping at the foot of a waterfall in South Iceland. So for me, that's a really important image. This is Skogafoss, shot that evening just before the sun went down. And I tried to do something different rather than the big wide angle shot that kind of makes the waterfall look small. I tried to zoom right in with the 70 to 200. I shot it at 150 millimeters and I slowed down the shutter speed to get some silky water and some motion in the people. And then I have this photographer down here for scale so you can see how big this waterfall is. This is just the kickback of the waterfall. This is just the mist coming off the base. That's how big it is. You're just at the very bottom of the waterfall. Going back to the other image, if you look, the kickback's to about here. So in this image, you're only looking at about a third of the waterfall. So that's another thing I've been focusing on, is capturing the details. And this is an example. I took the big scale image too, but I wanted to focus on the details and create some emotion in a shot. And for me, this worked well. You can't go to Iceland without horses. We got the Icelandic horses here. We had nice soft light here. This is one of about 5,000 times we saw Icelandic horses, and the only time we stopped to photograph them, because the light was perfect and they had that iconic Icelandic horse look. They have the brown body and then this really long flowing blonde hair. They couldn't have been a more perfect subject for us and for my photo story to show off the horses of Iceland. Also sheep, you see as many sheep as you do horses, probably even more. And this was one of the places that it just worked to get that iconic shot of a sheep in Iceland to work with a photo story. We have our sheep, we have the 2 steps of the waterfall, and probably some grass that I need to clean up here in post-processing. But again, for a photo series of Iceland, it just fits the whole package. Again, this is Seljalandsfoss, and we had terrible light here. It was pouring on us. It was absolutely miserable. But I remember that night. I remember how miserable it was. I remember how dramatic it felt and how terrible it felt. And when you do a photo series, you can't just put in the happy moments. You have to put in like the ones that were tough too, and this was tough. This was probably the second most, the waterfall I second most wanted to photograph. And this is one of the only shots I got of it just because we were getting destroyed by rain. I climbed up this ridge later in the night and I fell down it. I was covered in mud all up my leg. So it was a really like shit night, to be honest. It was really not a happy night, but you need to put that in your photo story because you're properly conveying how your time was in a certain destination. This is the geyser. This is the geyser. When people invented the word geyser, it was from here. This is geyser. So you have to include that in the photo story of Iceland, I believe. This thing goes off like every 4 minutes or so. And I tried to capture it with a slightly longer exposure, 1/10, because I thought it would look cool, kind of like a water trail in this dark sky here. And I just did a simple image, shot on, straight on, put the horizon at 2/3, put this smack dab in the middle, and it works for the photo story perfectly, I think. It was about that point, getting back to Reykjavik, that I realized I'd been absolutely terrible at photographing the people and culture of Iceland. I didn't do any countryside churches, I didn't do any village people, I didn't do anything like that. And so when I got back to Reykjavik, I made it a focus to try to grab some of the people to add to this photo story. And along the coast there, I found this gentleman who was fishing along the coast, and he's got one rod here that he's line fishing on. He's got another rod in here that he's trying to catch something on, and he kept glancing back up at the reel up here to see if it was moving, to see if he'd caught anything. And so I would just wait for him to look up, and then I would fire away with a 70 to 200 from over here on the rocks. And I just love how it came out. It's a fisherman smoking a cigarette on the coast with another rod here, and it just says Icelandic fisherman to me anyway. And it's a really nice sharp image, and yeah, I really liked it. I like how that came out. And actually that one, and there's almost an identical one. I think that this one is actually sharper than the other one. I think I showed you the wrong one. Yeah, so anyway, they're both cool. I like them. I'm really happy with how they came out. This is the last image from that photo series, again in Reykjavik. We ate a lot of hot dogs in Iceland. We couldn't really afford the good food at the restaurants. No, we couldn't really afford the food. We couldn't afford the food. We're just broke. We don't have money. We're travel photographers. Travel photographers are poor. We spend our money on travel, not food. So we ate a lot of hot dogs at the gas stations because they were only like, they were only like $50, whereas like a burger was like $4,000. I'm exaggerating a bit. But anyway, we'd spend a couple bucks on a hot dog almost every single day. So in Reykjavik, we went to the most famous hot dog vendor in the entire country and grabbed some dogs. I pulled out the super wide angle lens and shot this at 10 millimeters. Usually when you shoot people, you're shooting like 50 millimeters or something like that. But I love the effect of the wide angle with vendors because you can put them in a massive scene. You can see the food and then blur them out in the background. And I love how that came out. And yeah, that's my Iceland photo story. If you want to buzz through it really quickly like that, or mix it together any way you want, it tells a really, really interesting story about a diverse 7 days in Iceland. And I'm really happy with my photos from Iceland. I think in 7 days I managed to capture 300 images that were keepers, probably 50 to 100 that I'm willing to show off, and probably about 30 or 40 that I could sell. So that's a really good 7 days in Iceland for me. If you want to see these images in full size and not just on the video, head over to my website, brendansadventures.com, and I'll have all those images lined up in the article for you in full size, full screen for you to check out, analyze, and whatnot. While you're over there, I also want to urge you to subscribe to my newsletter. My newsletter is awesome. I don't send out that many newsletters, maybe once a month. And you get a free subscription to my magazine, Vagabundo Magazine, which is an adventure travel magazine full of great travel photography. It's cool. I swear on it. Go and get it. I also want to urge you to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now. There's lots of really cool stuff coming up in the next little while. I'll be reviewing this sweet piece of technology. This is the Nokia 1520 smartphone. And it is beautiful. It's For a photographer, it's maybe not as jam-packed as the 1020 I used last year, but it's got a 20 megapixel camera and takes beautiful photos for a smartphone. It actually probably takes the best photos from a smartphone aside from the Nokia 1020 on the market. It's been out for about a year, so there's lots of video reviews on it. So I'm going to do a photography video specific review on the Nokia 1520 in the next couple weeks. I've also got some more gear reviews, and then of course I'm traveling across Canada at the moment. So right now I'm in Toronto. There'll probably be a video from here, and then I'll be booking it across Canada on the Via Rail to the Rockies, and then I'll be spending some time in the Canadian Rockies. Lots of cool footage coming from there. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you next time. I'm losing my voice. It happens. Peace.